Hello everyone and welcome to this little video. The purpose of this video is to show you how to uh, install the macros that I have provided. There is one macro for LibreOffice, but this video will be dedicated to installing the macro in Excel. So I have downloaded the macro here on my desktop, VBA iteration spreadsheet.bs. And so we're going to install it in Excel as a general purpose macro. So the first thing you need to do in Excel, as it's not set up by default, is to go to Options, and I believe it's on Customize ribbon, where you need to make sure to add the Developer tab. And so now you should be able to go to the Developer tab. And you can have access to the macros, in which case you can I believe create a new macro sheet. So I test, and that gives us a new macro sheet that has been created, a new workbook. Now I think we need to make this our personal workbook, if I am not mistaken. It's always a little bit more complicated to install these things in Excel, and I forget from one time to the next. I'm sorry, but I think there is a personal workbook that needs to be created. So VBA project. Is this the book that needs to be created? At least that's how it used to be. It needed to be in the personal workbook. And now we can import the file that's on our desktop. Okay, and it's module 1.1. So let's get rid of the previous one. Can we remove module 1? Yes. And we do not want to export. All we wanted was to have the iteration programming. Okay, and so if I were to try to run it, so I get the iterate function now. So let's make a new spreadsheet. Okay, so it was not, okay, that's the name, but it's still book 1. Let's see how things work. If we go to the spreadsheet, okay, F5 is go to, so we will want to avoid also here to run that. And so we want to go to developer, and here we want to probably associate it to I didn't insert macros. Yes, I want to go to macros, and from here we have iterate, and we want to go to options, so we can associate it to a key, and maybe control R okay, to run it, iterations. Okay. So now anytime we press Ctrl R, in theory it should run. So if I run it now, it will give me an error message because the iteration source variable is not selected. If I say Ctrl R, I get the same error message because I have associated it to the same macro. So what I can do now is define a range. Here we have Z values. So we want to find steady state in a uniform soil with a single value of K. So basically at steady state it was just the average of the neighbors. So we go from 0, let's say we go by 0.1 plus 0.1 up to 2 meters. I mean, the specific units doesn't matter. Okay, we just want to go to 2 meters, and now we have the previous pore pressure and the one that we will calculate for the next step. Okay, now this is steady state, so I don't care really about the number of steps, but remember that if you have time dependent one, you may want to go to specific number of steps if you want to save intermediate steps. So here I would go from 5 so my initial conditions are 3, but at the boundaries I have 5 and 1. Okay, pretty much like the example I believe that we had set previously. And so here I have 0.5 times the sum of the neighbors from the previous step. And so I can run. Now by default we have 100 iterations. Okay, we're still missing the source value. So the source is the range that I want to copy from. So I want to copy this range, and as the variable indicated, it should be called iteration. And the top left corner of where I want it pasted every time is going to be called iteration TGT for target. Iteration underscore TGT. And now if I run Control R, okay, so the number of iterations is run each time. Now 100 may not seem sufficient, but eventually we get to the steady state condition, and so we can do whatever we want with this data. Now you may want to be able to change, so I will create another spreadsheet for variables. You don't have to do it in a separate sheet, could be on the same one. I will put here a control for the max iterations, for the maximum number of iterations, at which point I would stop. So that's particularly good for your time dependent problems where you want to set the number of time steps and then you stop, and then you can take a snapshot to keep in your records. And so that's for max iterations, and I may want to have also an iteration indicator. So this variable will be called iteration underscore. So always iteration underscore for these macros names, so that it's clear that it's for that macro. Max iterations. Okay, and the next one will be called iteration underscore indicator. Okay, so now if I say that the max iteration is 500 and I were to run Control R, it will go from, the indicator goes from 1 to 500. and it runs them here. So let's replace this. And if I were to run, okay, so it has done 100 iterations, another 500, another 500, and there you go. We have converged. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on how to use the macro. I think it's a fairly useful thing to have. It can turn any spreadsheet that you have into a tool that lets you do iteration programming. So you basically have a full programming language just in a spreadsheet using that. And all it does is copy a range, paste it another place. So all this was doing was copying this and pasting here as values. So if you were to go to home, paste value, okay, that's basically what it was doing. Okay, so enjoy, and I will see you in the next class.